because Lance Reisland, Coach Riz on the Wise Heart Right, We Make It Right, Call Kyle Right hotline. He joins us now, an astute observer of the game. He's coached for many years. He knows every level of football. And Coach Riz, you just heard what Daryl said and how I stopped the conversation. Does it matter to you whether this prospect, who's also considered a project in Brendan Sorsby, is better than Shedeur Sanders right now?
It does, because, if you look at the Browns over the last, obviously since they came back, but the Browns, for me, as a coach, they have to prioritize winning right now. And I don't think Brendan Sorsby is better than Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson right now. And I don't think he helps you beat Jacksonville. And as a coach, I kind of look at it through that lens, because when you start looking too far ahead, that's when things start. You're always preparing for what's next. And I learned a long time ago, if you always prepare for what's next, you're usually not a part of it. And the Browns have to control what they can control. And for me, I think he's got elite traits. There's no question. He's got first round traits. However, when you're trying to win right now, I don't know if that helps you. And the improvements that you've made on this football team, and once again, it's not about giving guys a chance or seeing what Shedeur has. I don't believe any of that. I believe in what do you have to do to win in week 1 in Jacksonville. And I don't think Sorsby helps you there. And I think of it from a football perspective. Because he is a talented guy, he's coming in and he's taking reps. And he's going to take reps away from whoever the starter is. And he's probably not going to be the starter. And if he's not going to be the starter, then those reps need to go to the guy that's going to help you beat Jacksonville. So I look at it from a different view. However, I'm also not as high on Sorsby as others. I have him 9th on my board if he was to come out last year. Not 9th on the total board, 9th on my quarterback board. So I think he's a talented guy, but I think the Browns, I don't think they're settled into who they have, but they have to make sure that the guy that they have is going to be the quarterback that helps you win in Jacksonville.
Well, Coach, listen, if he's 9th on the board, then no, I'm not putting in a bid. I've always been doing this under the assumption, hypothetically, that the Browns might have had him. We had Jordan Rogers, his commentary on, where he said that he had a higher ceiling than Ty Simpson and Mendoza. And look, I know we're talking ceiling versus the here and now. I wouldn't be shocked if the Browns had Shedeur higher right now than Sorsby. Obviously, he had more college games and he has NFL experience. But it is my argument that we're talking about him in terms of he is a project. He's a dart you throw. And if you want to put a 3rd-round pick in the supplemental, I can understand. To me, that makes sense when it's hard to come by guys with these types of traits in the 3rd round. That's all I'm saying when it comes to Sorsby.
Yeah, you got a guy who, it's interesting because you look at all his stuff and you look at his games. He threw for over 7,000 yards. Really intriguing. He's had over 1,200 yards rushing in his career. He's got 36 total touchdowns. So he does a bunch of things really, really well when you watch him on film. The game that pushed me away from him just a little bit is the Utah game. And I'm a big Kyle Whittingham fan and what they do on defense. And it's very NFL-based, where they're going to keep everything in front. They're going to force you to do things that you don't like to do, or maybe it's not in your what you do best, I want to say. So when you look at him, they kept Sorsby in the pocket. They made him get to the 2nd or 3rd progression. They didn't let him get outside the pocket, because that's where he's really, really dangerous. If you think of like a Patrick Mahomes kind of thing. Well, there's only one Patrick Mahomes, and you have to throw from structure in the pocket a bunch in the NFL. And if you watch Patrick Mahomes, even though everybody talks about his off-platform throws, where he's really, really good is from the pocket within the system, getting to his 2nd, 3rd progression. That's where, for me, that's where I saw Sorsby struggle against Utah, because Utah said, you know what, we know how talented you are. We're going to keep you in the pocket. We're going to take away your first read. We're going to keep everything in front. So we're going to keep those scramble plays where the DBs don't stay connected and you get that ball down the field. And we're going to make you beat us methodically down the field. And he struggled against Utah. Arizona, he struggled against Arizona. Now, all the physical traits are there. And once again, it doesn't take 32 guys to like him. It takes one. And I understand that. But for me, that Utah game is what took me off him just a little bit, just because of the fact Utah does what NFL guys, these NFL coordinators, that's what they do for a living. They're going to make you beat them with what you do the worst. And for me, I don't know if that, once again, could that get better? Absolutely. But then again, it goes back to what how I always think about it. I'm trying to win week one. And that's where the Browns have to, I think their focus has to be, not worried about next year or developmental, another guy, all that kind of stuff. What do we have to do to win week one in Jacksonville? And then you move on from there.
Well, if they do select Brendan Sorsby or they bid on him and they win the thing, somebody's getting voted off the island. Now, there's only 2 quarterbacks that are guaranteed to make this roster right now. That's Taylon Green and Deshaun Watson. Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, there's no guarantee for either one of them. But I hypothesize that if they get Sorsby, Shedeur goes. Like, that's 2 quarterbacks that you will have picked after Shedeur Sanders. And I don't know, I think that the Browns would then be telling you what they really thought of Shedeur.
Well, it does. And Daryl, it does tell you what, like, the obvious, he doesn't fit what they want in the future. And I'm a Dillon Gabriel fan, and I have been, and I've been on that mountain alone, and that's okay.
You're going to die on that hill, my friend.
That's right, and I'm okay with that. But here's, when you look at Dillon Gabriel, he doesn't fit what this new offense is. And he's a system-based guy who needs help around him, and a lot of help around him. And that's a Stefanski offense. That's not a Todd Monken offense. So it's going to be tough for Dillon to make this team, even though I like him, and I think he could be a great backup and provide a lot of things. Taylon Green gives you a great at the worst, gives you a great scout team quarterback, which is so important, for a defense when you face Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. So that's an underrated thing that Taylon Green brings to the equation. If you take Brendan Sorsby, then I think you are saying that it tells you that one is Deshaun Watson has played at a much higher level, not on the field because there's been some issues with some accuracy, but the ability to get him in the right play, the processing, the health, all those kind of things that we talk about. They think really highly of Deshaun Watson, not because of the contract, but because he helps them win week one. And then, it tells you we need to find, we're going to throw some darts at the board here for our quarterback of the future. And it does tell you that maybe that's not, that Sanders is not the route they're going. I wouldn't agree with that with Brendan Sorsby. But once again, that's the interesting thing about a quarterback evaluation. We all look at things differently. It's just like the quarterback competition during the summer. I viewed it differently than others, and I don't think others were wrong. It's just what you're looking at. I'm looking at footwork and fundamentals and processing and weight transfer and all those things that I think these guys have improved on. However, there was some missed throws, and it's a product-based league, so I see why other people said they didn't play well in the summer. So it's interesting. The quarterback position is a really tough one to evaluate. We all get it wrong. I just don't know if Sorsby is that guy that's going to change the narrative moving forward.
Coach Riz with us right now on the hotline. So we're talking about traits. Have you changed your evaluation of Shedeur Sanders and his traits over the course of, the last year, the last 6 months? Has any of that changed now that you've seen him in the NFL start 7 games and you've seen him in camp?
Yeah, watching him practice, it has. So when you go back to his Colorado days, even when you go back to Jackson State, so he didn't have much pass protection. And everybody talks about that lack of pass protection as he couldn't get through his progressions. Shedeur Sanders is a smart quarterback. Now, some of his bad habits came from lack of pass protection. Some of his bad habits came from trying to do too much, trying to play hero ball at times, which gets you in trouble as a quarterback. But a lot of that has to do with just, I didn't have pass protection. I thought Pat Shurmur, especially at Colorado, did a really nice job of how do we get the ball in space to our guys knowing we're not going to have a lot of time to throw it? Now, he comes into the league, and first time he's out there, even in practice, continuously retreats. And in the NFL, you can't do that. So over the course of 7 games, I thought that's improved. I think it's really improved. Now, he's had some accuracy issues, so has Deshaun Watson. But I've said this to everyone. Denzel Boston's going to run his curl differently than Casey Concepcion. That's good. That's a proven thing. And you would hope with reps that'll, get cleaned up. The thing I'm looking for was the curl route that you missed, is that the right place to go? And that's what I've seen from him, getting to his second, third progressions. Fundamentally, he's stepping up more than he is retreating. He's transferring his weight from his backside to his front side because he doesn't, Deshaun Watson has an elite arm. Shedeur Sanders has a good arm, but when you have a good arm, you need to make sure you transfer your weight from your backside to your front side. He's doing a much better job of that. So, I see his poise, his control, his ability to get him into good run plays. They're doing a lot of those things already in camp where he's killing a bad run play one side, getting it to the other side, or changing it completely. So there's a lot of things going on besides the throws. Now, the next thing is it's a product-based league, so you got to make sure that not only you're going to the right spot, but it's accurate. And I think for both of those guys, that's what I'm looking for in camp is the accuracy. But if you ask me if he's gotten better, yes, there's been substantial improvement from all aspects of mechanics and fundamentals from his time in Colorado to where he is right now. Nobody
tracks off-season championships quite like we do here in Cleveland when it comes to the Browns. According to Josh Edwards of the NFL on CBS, he says the Browns won the offseason. So my question to you, Coach Riz, is can you win an offseason by trading your best player?
Well, and I was against the Myles Garrett trade, and I continue to say, I'm never for trading the best player. I'm never for doing that. But sometimes trading the best player can make the team dynamic a little bit better at times, and maybe that'll be the case. Myles Garrett is not the vocal leader everybody wanted him to be, but he's a heck of a football player. But the more I watch Jared Verse, he's not bad. And now you're going to have to – I say this all the time. When you go into when you play the Browns and you're the offensive coordinator, no matter who your left tackle is, that's your weakest offensive lineman going into that game because he's facing Myles Garrett. So all the rest of the defensive linemen get singles. And now it's all right. Now we need to help our right guard against Mason Graham. We need to help our center when they shade Malik Collins. We need to make sure Alex Wright. So now offenses kind of don't have to think like that. So Jared Verse has to. What you're getting out of Myles Garrett. You assume what you're getting out of Jared Verse. Now he's been awesome on film and he's a leader and all those kind of things. But you got 23 sacks out of Myles Garrett, so that has to be made up somewhere. Now, here's why I think they've improved though. Special teams is all about fundamentals, getting lined up and want to. You and I have watched it. They get after it every day with those, and they break it down, and special teams is important. That defense, even though Myles is gone, they brought in a guy who is pretty good, but Mason Graham's a year older. Carson Schwarzenegger's a year older. They have two elite corners. They've addressed the safety position, so that's now even stronger. If the nickel back doesn't work out, they can play three safeties. They haven't fixed the offensive line, but they've addressed it. Judkins looks healthy. Sampson looks healthy. The receiver position is deeper. They have an elite tight end. The tight end group as a whole has gotten better. So when I look at this roster, I say, you never get better. You win with players. As coaches, we get too much credit. You win with good players, and you never want to get rid of great players. So yes, even though they got rid of their A+, I think they have a lot more B+ now on their roster, and I think that can be successful.
Wait. What a breakdown. Coach Riz joined us on the hotline. I know we've used up a lot of your time, but quickly, we didn't see Fannin. I know he was recovering from his surgery at the end of the year. Do you think he's going to get even more usage this year? And do you think that usage will be more effective than it was under the last coach?
Well, now you have Jerry Jeudy, you have Boston, you have Casey Concepcion, and you have Isaiah Bond, who I think had a great, probably the best summer of all those receivers, even though, it's his second-year guy, but he was really impressive. So now what you've created with an offensive line that you think is going to be better, a running game that should be very solid, now you've created balance on this offense. So you're number one. Everybody says that the Browns don't have a number one receiver. Well, for me, they have four pretty solid receivers. And if you have four pretty solid receivers, your alpha, your number one is Harold Fannin. And what you've created for your quarterback is now defenses have to play balanced because you have receivers who are capable of getting open and making plays. Are they Jamar Chase? No, they're not, but they're pretty good receivers. At least so far they are. We have to see what they do when games start. But now a quarterback is going to see a balanced look. You're not going to get double teams on Fannin. You're going to get Fannin against backers and safeties more than you're going to get a corner on them because the Browns have capable receivers. And then if you play nickel and you get linebackers out of there because you don't want a linebacker, you're assuming that you can run the ball better because the best way to run the ball is have less guys to block. So I think that I'm not sure the quantity. Maybe he doesn't have as many, but I think the quality and the amount of yards he gets are going to be outstanding because he's going to be in really favorable matchups when he catches the ball.
Coach Riz, let's do it again sometime. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. We'll talk soon.
All right, there he is. Lance Reisland, 92.3 The Fan, and Cleveland.com on the Weishart Right. We make it right. Call Kyle Wright hotline. All right, some reaction to some of what Coach Riz thinks. He agreed with you, Daryl, that wouldn't make a lot of sense based on current evaluations for Sorsby ahead of Shedeur and to put a bid in the supplemental. I want to react to that.